Monday was the beginning of the end of cash bail in Illinois, and we've seen it implemented in all 102 counties. How is Sangamon County Jail being impacted by that? As we talked with Sheriff Jack Campbell last week, we joined him again here live in studio this week to get that update and just an overview of sorts. Thanks for taking time with us, Jack.
Sure.
And,
good morning.
Good morning. So we've got 5 days or so of this being in effect. How's it been at Sangamon County Jail?
Well, really no change. Our head count in the jail has remained pretty steady. But, again, it's really more the process that is our concern. We have some of the officers on the street that have a lot of questions. And really what happens for me personally is calls, emails, texts, and even people stop me on the street to ask me about this. Very concerned about their safety, which has always been my concern. So right now, it's so far so good.
So when we're looking at some of those constituent contacts you're having with people out on the street, have you gotten like the same types of questions over and over? What are they saying to you?
Well, there's a lot of common sense people around here, as we know, and they are very concerned. They not have just heard my concern and law enforcement's concern and maybe some of our legislators' concern, but their common sense tells them that when people that commit crimes are not held accountable, all that does is provide more opportunity for crime to be committed. So they're very concerned about it, as we are, and we're going to do our best to keep on top of this.
When it comes to those who are behind bars waiting trial before no cash bail happened, have you had some individuals apply to get released in that time?
Sure. Talking to our state attorney, Dan Wright, last night to get the latest numbers, we've had over 50 inmates have petitioned to have their cases reviewed.
And these are people who were behind bars waiting trial before no cash bail was brought
Exactly.
forward. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Almost all of them. And we have a few arrests since then that have also done the same thing. But we're of the over 50 that have petitioned, 7 have gone to hearing. And thanks to Dan Wright, and I know one of his assistants, Mary Beth Rogers, they've done a great job of arguing. And actually, we're 7 for 7 of these people being detained. So they've had their petition turned down, and we're able to remain in custody.
And we'll get more information on what those particular crimes of those 7 that were, essentially a judge saying, yeah, you can detain them.
Sure.
But what types of, have you seen so far, just in general terms, what types of, criminal complaints are these individuals facing?
Well, it runs the gamut. It's a constant influx into the jail. We book in around 15 to 20 every single day historically, and again, that number hasn't changed a lot. So obviously, to maintain about a 300 head count, you have almost the same number going out just constantly. So again, we haven't seen that major uptick or downward movement of the head count. So it's just something we're going to have to keep an eye on. It's very early. I've been saying all along that I really believe it's going to take about 3 months for us to really get a good measure as to how this is going to impact our head count, how it's going to impact the crime rate. And believe me, the crime rate is something we're going to stay on top of, along with individuals that we believe would have previously been detained or at least had to post a significant cash bond to see what other crimes they go out and commit. And whatever it is, I want to get it back to you and the other media outlets to let them know what's happening here.
Sheriff Campbell joins us here live in studio with Springfield's Morning News, getting a review of the first 5 days or so of the end of cash bail. And, of course, we'll be looking at this as we move forward. And you even talked about hopefully talking with lawmakers to possibly bring about some reforms. In this first 5 days, you mentioned you might want to repeal it last week when we talked, but have you seen any kind of loopholes or anything that really sticks out within these first 5 days as this needs to change?
Not anything significant or specific, I can tell you, but what I do know is, though I've aired my concerns and I want our constituents to know what's happening, we figure out a way to get things done. And again, the loopholes are there. And this is not something that would violate anybody's rights. It's something for us to work within the parameters of the act. So law enforcement has a way, and historically, to continue to protect our citizens. And I think they have a lot of faith in us that we will do all we can. And so we will be watching for, looking for, and sharing anything we can as far as ways around this act to get these people into custody.
And we talked last week as well about just the overall jail population, and I want to touch back on the issue of inmates that are unfit, and if that's changed at all in the past 5 days, which I don't think it has. But when it comes to the money side of this, right? I mean, it was all about money bond and saying that people are innocent until proven guilty, and they shouldn't languish behind bars because they can't afford to bail out. What do you think the impact's going to be without getting that money bond for a county like Sangamon?
Well, I've heard other counties kind of complaining about that. We have never complained about that. We take in about $100,000 a year in bonding fees. Now, I have just under $23 million budget. So that $100,000 is not a significant portion. Now, every little bit helps, but again, I always look for the bright side here. If my head count goes down, and I believe it really will begin to go downwards, even temporarily, I am spending less money on medical information, and I have less money on food. It won't change our staffing levels at all, but I think there's going to be a little bit of an offset of that loss of revenue in the bonding fees.
And then when it comes to officer morale, that was another issue that was raised. And when I asked State Representative Carol Ammons about officer morale, she kind of said, hey, being a police officer is a tough job, and it just kind of comes with the territory. Officers know that going into it,
sure,
right? I mean, that's obvious, just in the nature of law enforcement. But how do you feel that this particular act now in place, now being enforced, is it going to boost morale, or is it going to harm morale?
Well, it certainly will not boost it. I think that again, our deputies, I can only speak for them. They're professional. They can be internally frustrated by this. Again, many of these, they have that police spirit we talked about, and they're more frustrated with the system. They're more frustrated with our lawmakers not listening to us, not engaging with us as to what they should be asking law enforcement. What do we need to do? What kind of laws do we need to have to keep all of our constituents safe? And I think it really confuses us when they don't even bother asking us, and they pass sweeping legislation like this. And in their heart, and look, I know it's a Democratic supermajority, but deep in their heart, there's a lot of good people that are law-abiding Democrats that have to understand this is not a good thing for our society. And if it's pandering for votes, is an awful thing, and is disingenuous at best. So again, I think our deputies will figure out a way to work around it. We try to talk to them, give them information. The atmosphere in the briefings I've gone to is not really dejection or anything yet. It's a little bit of anger and frustration, and I think in the end they will work around this and keep doing their jobs.
Well, you use the word disingenuous, and that makes me kind of segue into this next issue that we talked about last week as well, and that's those who are unfit for trial still being held at the Sangamon County Jail and jails across the state. Democrats who pushed for the end of cash bond said it's an issue, a humanitarian issue. These people have rights, and they shouldn't have to languish behind bars. I guess square that up to what you're dealing with right now with those who are found by the courts to be unfit to face trial.
Right. Well, I had sued the DHS and the governor and was successful, and then the legislature came in and changed the law. Well, I actually was just come back from a sheriff's conference up in Peoria, and I got a chance to speak to Dr. Sharon Coleman, who from DHS, and she expressed to all the sheriffs that were present in the conference, that they understand our concerns, that they're working on it. They're frustrated by a lack of, their employees and facilities and beds. But I reminded her that, that the jails are overcrowded too. We don't get to turn people away. So the inmates are ultimately the ones that we're trying to get that help for. And it's just frustrating on our end again that all these mandates, everything's pushed back into our jails and places that are overcrowded and don't really have enough of the mental health care need that these inmates need. So it's frustrating on our end, and I don't know where it's going to go for sure. We still maintain about 4 or 5 in our jail. They've been here longer than the 60 days. So we're going to keep working on it. And
I would imagine with the recent change in state law addressing this, has that provided any relief, or is it just kind of made it what was the status quo you guys sued about, just make that the status quo?
It is. It is still status quo. It's just what it did was it gave them cover that they're not violating the law anymore. They were held in contempt a couple times in Sangamon County courts, DHS was, and all this did was give them cover. But in the end, again, if it gave them cover, it still does not do anything for these inmates. It just made them look better, and they were no longer going to be held in contempt. So politically, it looks better on their end. It changes nothing about the head count in all of our jails. And by the way, Dr. Coleman said there are about 200 statewide that are sitting in county jails that need to be in DHS facilities. So again, we are not taking care of these inmates, and that's our ultimate goal, is to make sure they get that need.
Yeah, I gotta think about the humanitarian issues with all of that, and people who need proper mental health care. I think everybody, and even the sheriff here, kind of intimating this. The county jail is not the place to get that health care. You guys have some capabilities, but it's not the proper place for that type of mental health care to be provided.
Right. It's simply not our job. We do it, and look, we spend a lot of money on mental health care treatment. And like I told you before, we have about 100 inmates that have serious mental health issues. And then if you're focusing on the 4 or 5 that are declared unfit sitting in our custody, the other 95 are not getting as much treatment as they would normally get. So that is one of the things we're trying to resolve also.
Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell, always great to see you. Thanks for coming in so early in the morning.
Thanks for having me, Greg. I always appreciate it.
Early start to the day for
is.
you, but glad you're able to do it. So we'll talk again in the near future, all right?
Absolutely. Thanks.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and